I think, you know, the first time I went to apply it, I had only had 9 lessons with Carlos Machado, and because of the importance of the fang choke, which Eric had stumbled across and was fanging everybody in sight, normally the first thing they work is escape from mount. That's the classic BJJ lesson 1. But with me, it was understanding both sides of Kesekatami, because that's the position from which we decided that it was best to do the fang. Standing fang, too many possibilities of getting thrown. There was a time in Tennessee in 1988, Eric was going with a 230-pound football player, wrestler type, you know, Georgia All-State, I think it was. And he was trying to fang him through the Dosi Paris headgear, which has the big bib, and the fang wasn't biting, and the guy just grabbed him by the waist and suplexed him and knocked him out. You know, for 15 minutes, he's walking around saying, "Why are we in Minnesota?" So, you know, we have a general rule of thumb: best not to do standing headlock fang base, standing headlock base fang chokes. So, you know, working on the ground. So, you know, it started from there. And I had very good results with it. And so Eric said, "Mark, what you doing?" And so I turned him on to the Machado brothers. And that's when Arlen, Salty Dog, he didn't have jiu-jitsu available in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's when he went into the Krabi Krabang to develop ways to make it harder for us to come in. And he was naturally a very good anti-closing game. If you have probably close to 1,000 fights with Top Dog, you're going to want to develop a good anti-closing game. Intuitively, you can see this even before the grappling era and the Rambless footage from the first series. He's got a very good intuitive sense of stiff arming with the live hand, and the Krabi Krabang gave him knees and elbows and plum and clinch game, and so his anti-closing game became very formidable. Okay, so now that the helicopter is fading away, going to pick up on what I was saying, he developed a very powerful anti-grappling game, and so the Krabi Krabang was his big contribution to the evolution of Dog Brothers fighting, and it's been an important influence on Dog Brother martial arts as well, the Trikas material. And so we began the stick grappling, and at this point I was from 90 to 92 I'd made it to blue belt, which in those days meant I was a badass in the world of people who knew nothing. And then in 92, I had a terrible injury. And I have a scar from here to here. Someone stepped on my foot while he was sweeping this leg. We were warming up with judo throws, and he's 6'7", and so when he swept, the knee went out sideways, and the ACL, the PCL, and the lateral collateral ligaments were all snapped in half. Very serious injury when you're 40 years old, any age. Some people would have taken that as a hint, but not me. And so I had about a year and a half where I was, I had to go through 3 surgeries, get myself ready to fight again. So that was fall of 92. I didn't have my first fight after that till spring of 94. That was when I edited the first series, the Real Contact Stick Fighting series. But in this era, there were a lot of people who were very upset with the idea of the grappling that they were seeing in the Dog Brother gatherings. Word about us was beginning to spread. And more so when we released the first series, I think that was fall of 93. And people were saying, "Oh, well, you didn't see the grappling and the death matches in the Philippines." And, you know, what part of our answer is, we're not trying to kill anyone. And they say, "Well, you're only getting in because of the headgear." And frequently, that's true. But with the experience that you, with training and then testing your training, the experience of that testing that you can survive by virtue of the fencing mask means that I'm a very firm believer that you can close technically without using the headgear. And
we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, we see that. So are there plenty of fights where people are getting in because of the headgear? Absolutely. Are there plenty of skilled fighters who can get in without the head being touched? Absolutely, and that can be taught and produced with good predictability. So I strongly believe that. But still, there's an element of the classical Filipino martial art audience that was very doubtful, and for them, I tell the story of the famous challenge match between Grandmaster Attilio of Balintawak and Grandmaster Kokoy Kanyeti of Dosi Paris. And Grandmaster Attilio gave a seminar one night at the Inosanto Academy, and he brought in, he was still mad about this fight decades later, and he showed us the rules that the two of them had signed. And one of the rules that they had agreed to was no grappling. Grandmaster Kokoy mixed judo in, hence the name Escrito instead of Eskrima in his style. And so the rule was no grappling. And so then there was a big picture on the front page of the sporting section, and I guess it was in Cebu, of the Cebu newspaper, showing that Kokoy had him bent forward with his head here like this, and I think he was whacking him in the head behind here like this. And there's Attilio saying, see, Attilio was mad, see, he cheated. So, but for our purposes, to me, this very clearly shows that a great master like Grandmaster Attilio, with tremendous close quarter skills, the trapping skills of Balintawak are impressive. He was concerned about the grappling skills of Kokoy, and that Kokoy used those skills in his fight against him. So I would say even in the Philippines, it could happen. You know, but there's differences. That, you know, when I was over in the Philippines, I realized that there just aren't that many places that you feel like spending a lot of time on the ground, and so forth. And in a weaponry-based environment, sort of more, you know, a grappling fight is more of a ritual fight, unless you start getting into the silat kind of a concept where the knives are there as part of the grapple, which is a separate question. But we continued to work with this, and I'd say during the 90s, this is really where I came into my own as a fighter. And I always regarded the stick grappling as my ace in the hole. And my idea of a perfect fight was that I wanted to score well from the outside, enter without getting hit in the head, and finish. In those days, the fights were 3 minutes plus instead of the current 2 minutes plus. So I felt if I could do those three things in a 3-minute fight, if I could score well in Largo range, if I could close without getting hit, and if I could finish in the grapple range, that I had tested all aspects of my art and manifested them in a fight. And you know, so that was my own little inner idea, is, you know, that's what I was looking to do.